Hi friends, so welcome back to my session. So in this video, let's see what is the use of scope identity in the MS SQL server. Okay, so I have a scenario. Okay, so I'm going to insert a record in the TBL departments. So this table has the columns like the ID, name, and whether the ID is active or not. Okay, the ID is a primary key with auto increment. So we just passed only the name and the is active flag. Okay, so I'm going to insert a record in the TBL department. Once I inserted the record as a team lead, okay, so I'm going to insert a record for an employee. So who's the first name, last name, and the department ID. So I'm fetching the ID from the department table. So here I'm using the subquery means I need the ID which I have been inserted before the above query. Okay, so for that purpose I have used this subquery, and the last column is active. I will show the table here. See, so we have primary ID, a primary key column with ID, the first name, last name, department, and is active. So except the primary key ID, we have passed all the data. Okay, so when I insert this record, before that, so let's see what the data we have in scope identity. See, we have so the scope identity is a default inbuilt function in the MS SQL. Okay, so the syntax for that is select scope identity. When you hover on the scope identity, see it will show as built-in function returns numeric. It will return only the numeric data. It won't return string or varchar. Okay, so numeric data in the sense means, for example, so it will return only the primary key column values. It will return only numeric with the primary key column values. Okay, for example, so let's take the scenario. So once I insert this record in the TBL departments, okay, so before that I will select my table and show you. See, now I got two records. So one is for developer, second is for HR. Okay, so when I remove this and when I insert this record, okay, so if I again run this query means, see, now I have the third record, team lead, this value, and the flag is active. Okay, now if I run this query means I will have the data as 3. How the 3 is coming means, so I have inserted this record, right? So for this record, the primary key column value is 3. The primary key column is ID in this table. I will show you department. We have a column called ID, primary is not null. So when we use the scope identity, it will retrieve the most recently inserted primary key column values. For example, I am going to insert a number of tables, like so for example, like employee, and for student, and for salary. So I had 3 tables. Okay, so first when I insert an employee, and again I will insert in student table, and finally I will insert in salary table, and after that when I use the select scope identity keyword at the bottom means the last level means it will return the primary key value for the salary table only. Okay, or else if you want the primary key column value for the employee table, student table, salary table means, so once the table is inserted at the next line you have to mention this select scope identity. So now here what happens means, when I insert the data in the employee table, okay, so from this keyword I can get the recently inserted primary key column within this session. okay, not in the global, within the session. Session means nothing. So this window is a session. When I create a new window, so this is a different session, okay. For example, when I run this query, here I will have the value as 3 because we have inserted a record in TBL departments. When I copy the scope identity and paste in the new window which I have created now, see, it will give null because we have inserted the record in only this session, and in this session there is no inserted data. We have not inserted any data in this, so it gives the output as null, okay. So this is another main thing. So let's come back to our this example. So if you want to get the maximum ID for the employee table, so once the data is inserted, at the next line you have to mention the scope identity. And if you want to get the maximum ID for student table, you have to use this keyword, and for salary table for this keyword. So in this way the scope identity will works, okay. So in here I will remove these example lines, okay. So now when I will remove the select query also. So now when I insert my employee values, so what happened, so here I have a subquery, right. So when we compare the subquery with the scope identity, so scope identity is the best way to use to get the recently inserted data, okay. So it depends upon your requirements. For example, you want the maximum ID in your current session or your current transaction, okay. So this is the best way to get the recently inserted primary key value, okay, not the any other column value, primary key column value, okay. When we compare the scope identity and the subquery, so subquery is a heavy cost. So again we are going to take the table and fetch the record and we will get the ID, okay. So when we compare the scope identity and the subquery, so scope identity is the best way, okay. So now let us see how to use this keyword in our insert query. Now I am going to remove the subquery, okay. I have removed. Just I will copy the scope identity keyword and paste it here, okay. Now see, so this table I'm going to pass the first name, last name, and the select scope identity. So it will retrieve the recently inserted primary key value for the table TBL department, okay. So now it will give the 3, okay. Now let's see how to insert and check. Before that I will show the value in the TBL employee. See, now I have 5 records. So there is no record like, sorry, we have already Rajkumar data, okay. We have Raj, we can change the name, okay. So now we have changed the last name as Raj Kannan, okay. There is no data like this. So I'm going to insert the data. Let's comment this one. So the first name is Raj, the last name is Kannan, and the so department ID which we have recently inserted, and there is active flag, okay. Now I'm going to insert this record. Before inserting, let's see what is the scope identity. It's 3, so it is a proper keyword for us. So I will copy the scope identity and I will paste it here also, okay. Now let's insert the record for the TBL employee, one row affected, okay. Now let's see the employee table. See, we have the Raj Kannan and the ID is department ID is 3. 3 means so recently inserted record primary key value, okay. So we are fine. Now let's see, after the insert of TBL employee table, what the value we will have in the scope identity. Okay, now let's run this and see. Now it gives the value as 6 because we have recently inserted the record in the TBL employee. Okay, so this table also having a column with the primary key. Okay, I will show you. We have employee till see, we have the ID as primary key, integer, not null. Okay, so when you insert the TBL employee, so or else when you make another insert, once the insert is successful, okay, then the scope identity function will get only the recently inserted primary key value. It won't hold the department value. Okay, the scope identity will hold the recently inserted table primary key value. So when you run that, so on top scope identity, it will also give the 6. Okay, so this is the use of the scope identity. So this is the best way to pass the recently inserted maximum ID for the primary key. Mostly all the tables will have the primary key, so this is the best way when we compare to the scope identity. And the main thing, so you will get the recently inserted maximum value only in this session. You won't get this employee ID in another session. I will show you the same. I will copy this and I will paste it here. Now I will run this. See, again we have the null because we have inserted the employee record in this session, not in the another session. So it will work only in the respective session, not across or globally the session. It will work only within the particular session or in the particular transaction. Okay, so thanks for watching my videos, friends. Like my video, share my video, and subscribe to my channel, friends. Bye. Thanks for